Hi, this is Anil and welcome to the video tutorial for the Learning Lad on C++ programming. So in this tutorial we're gonna learn how to create a variable, how to assign some values to the variable, and also how to retrieve the values from the variables. So I believe that all of you guys have watched my previous tutorial which explained what is a variable, what is a data type, and about the constants, keywords, etc. So in this tutorial we'll be creating the variables and we'll be demonstrating how to use them. Alright, a variable is nothing but the name given to a memory location to access that easily. So to create a variable in C++, first you need to write the type specifier or the data type, so which is nothing but the type of data will be stored in your variable. All of you know that there are 4 arithmetic data types available in C++, the integers, the character, floating point, and also boolean, and also one special type is there called void, which is normally used with functions to indicate that a particular function is not going to return any values. So here we're gonna learn how to create the variables of type int, char, float, boolean, and also how to assign some values to them, how to retrieve the values from them. So here, just for the demonstration purpose, I'm going to create an integer variable, a variable which is going to store some integer value. So the data type or the value stored in that variable is of type integer, and that's why I'm going to use the keyword int, which is used for integers, int, and then the variable name. So I'm going to call it as age. Then we need to add a semicolon here. And similarly, if you want to create a variable of type float, then you need to write float and the variable name. For example, I'm gonna say average, and we need to add a semicolon. And if you want to create a variable of type character, we need to use the keyword char and then the variable name, let's say sex. And then if you want to create a variable of type boolean, then you need to use the keyword bool and the variable name, let's say is it. That's pretty cool. Alright, now we have defined the variables here. So all these variables are going to contain some garbage values, and to demonstrate that I'm going to use the cout, and we can use stream insertion operator, and then we need to write the variable. So here age, I'm gonna write here, and then stream insertion operator again, and then I'm gonna add endl, which is another constant defined in the std namespace, which is used to add a new line, and then again the stream insertion operator, and then average, then again, and it's gonna be sex this time. Okay, here we're gonna add end line again. Alright, sex, and then again end line, and again it's gonna be is it. So we need to add a semicolon here. So if I save this program and run this, build and run, okay, you guys can see here some garbage values are present. So -2, some 1.80, etc garbage values. So once we define a variable in our program, the variables are going to contain some garbage values. So what we can do is we can initialize these variables to some values. So we can initialize a variable when we define that variable, or we can initialize them separately. For example, I can initialize this variable age here, let's say 23, and to initialize the variable we can use the assignment operator, which is an equal to symbol, and I can initialize this variable average after defining it here. Let's say average equal to 22.52, which is a floating point number. That's why I'm going to use 22.52. And similarly, if you want to initialize this 6, you can do it here, and is it, since it is a boolean type, we're going to store true. When we use true here, a value of 1 will be stored in this isIt variable, and if you use false here, a value of 0 will be stored here. So once we define and initialize a variable, we can access the values stored in that variable here. You can see here we have used cout function to just print out the values. If I save this program and run this again, build and run, now you guys can see here age 23, average 22.52, here average 22.52. Then sets yum, is it 1? Instead of true we have 1. So now another thing that we can do is we can create a bunch of variables at a time. For example, if you want to create, let's say, 3 variables of type integer, at that time you can combine them. For example, int a, and then you need to separate them by a comma, then b comma c. And also if you want to initialize them here, you can do that. For example, int a, then b equal to 10 comma c, etc, etc. Or I'm going to use another cout function here, and I'm going to refer the variable b, and then I'm going to add a new line. I'm going to save this, build and run. So now you guys can see here I have 10. So the value of b, which is 10 here. So another thing that you should keep in mind is that before using a variable in your program, you need to define it. So if I use a variable which is not defined in my program, then the compiler is going to generate some errors. For example, here in our program we don't have a variable called b right now, because I have removed that line. Now when we refer to that variable b, the variable is not present in our program. That's why the compiler is going to generate some errors. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to save this, build and run. So you guys can see here error, b was not declared in the scope. That's because b is not defined or declared in our program. Alright, the next thing is about the type modifiers. So we can use the type modifiers with our basic data types, for example short, int, etc, etc. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna influence on the number of bytes to store the values. For example, short int is smaller than int, etc, etc. Alright, this is it guys. This is about the variables, how to create or define a variable, how to use them, how to store the values in them, how to retrieve the values from them. So thank you guys, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.